Hi there, it's Donovan. Today, we have a lot to talk about regarding the full reveal of Nintendo Switch 2. It's a very great day for the unemployed. A lot of information has been revealed after the Direct, and the Direct itself was pretty freaking amazing. Everything after that, let's just call it a dumpster fire. My OG Nintendo Switch will be out of commission. It will no longer be of use. It's like evicting the older brother out of his bed and forcing him to sleep on the couch because his hotter younger brother has entered the room. There's just a lot to look forward with Nintendo Switch 2. From Mario Kart World to the loss of my house because I haven't been paying my bills. Nintendo Switch 2 definitely is gonna cost a whole lot. I know that C button stands for something, and that something is probably cash. Well, luckily I brought a special guest with me tonight to help me interview the Nintendo Switch 2. And it's the Nintendo Switch 2 itself. I stole this from the New York experience, don't tell anyone. So Nintendo Switch 2, you are looking pretty light today if I do say so myself. Oh, no, the pleasure's all mine. So, let's firstly talk about the price. What? I'm sorry? What is that? $450, okay, that's pretty reasonable because, $400 was kind of the sweet spot. $450 is kind of pushing it, but, still less expensive than the other big boys. And $500, you aren't Xbox or PlayStation, I'll tell you that. Now, hold on. Everything seems pretty reasonable so far. What's that? A camera sold separately? $50? Who the hell is buying that? Well, it's okay. I guess it has some in-game functionality. I'm sorry, what's that? Mario Kart World? $80? What are you talking about? What are you expecting? In this economy? The economical state of the world? You want to talk about that really quick? $80. Oh, wait. What's that? You're selling a bundle that'll make the game $50, but digital? You gotta do what you gotta do to play your Mario Kart, I guess. I need my Mario Kart World physically. How much is that going? $80? So that interview went pretty well. So pricing. We'll get to pricing in a little bit. But first, let's talk about the actual hardware changes. Now that it's confirmed, Nintendo Switch 2 is significantly bigger than the Nintendo Switch, though it still retains the same thickness, which is amazing for comfort. However, the Joy-Con 2, which we'll get to in a moment, still don't have an ass. So, there's nothing to grip on, if you know what I'm saying. So, it might feel still a little uncomfortable. I mean, that bitch is flat, so I don't know, your preference. But I guess the upside to having a flat ass is that you are pretty portable. You can still take Nintendo Switch 2 wherever you want in a very comfortable manner, unlike the Steam Deck. Unlike the Steam Deck where, holy crap, that is a plastic piece of ass. That makes Kim Kardashian's ass look natural. But in terms of build quality, it seems to have a matte texture, which is very nice on the hands. And it'll feel good to play, I promise, including with its larger size. That thing, especially for bigger people, it'll feel much more comfortable in the hands. However, my hands are the size of Peter Dinklage's face, so I'm not sure about the increased size. Nintendo Switch's size is kind of perfect for my little womanly hands, but it should be pretty damn nice. As for the screen, it is not OLED, which is a huge shame because Steam Deck does have an OLED screen, and the Nintendo Switch 1 also had an OLED screen. Now, Nintendo Switch 2 is bringing it back to basics with standard LCD display technology. However, that technology has vastly improved over the years ever since 2017. It may not be mini LED because this is a cheap console for babies, but it should feature a great 1080p 120Hz display with full HDR compatibility, which, I mean, I don't know about you, but that is pretty damn nice. That is about the same specifications as my iPad Air display, which right here, this is a pretty good display. We aren't We are missing out on those inky blacks, but with an LCD HDR display, and this display doesn't even go up to 120 Hz. So with the added bonus of 120 Hz, Nintendo Switch 2 in handheld mode and in tabletop mode should look pretty damn nice. And certainly for me, a humongous upgrade to that pretty pitiful LCD display of the original Nintendo Switch. Running that anywhere outside, you can barely see it. The brightness is terrible on that thing. On Nintendo Switch 2, brightness seems to be plenty good, and with HDR, games are going to look pretty damn vivid. Maybe not as good in terms of contrast as an OLED display, but it should get the job done, and it'll look great regardless. As for tabletop mode, we seem to be getting a better kickstand, more so in the shape of a U instead of the whole flap that we got with Nintendo Switch OLED. Visually, I do like the OLED kickstand a little bit better because it's just much more seamless, and visually, it just looks more sturdy. They're saying with Nintendo Switch 2's kickstand, it is more sturdy, and it probably saves them more plastic and is probably less prone to breaking. But the looks of the Nintendo Switch OLED's kickstand just looks so much better to me. It looks like a Surface Pro, which always looks fantastic. But that's no biggie. Tabletop mode will be great, including the addition of the second USB-C connector, which is at the top, which allows for additional charging, because you cannot charge the Nintendo Switch in tabletop mode because the USB-C connector is at the bottom, but now it's at the top, so that is very nice. We'll get to its other uses later on. As for Joy-Con 2 now, the Joy-Con snap magnetically to the sides of the Nintendo Switch 2 console, which was actually, surprisingly, an idea that was started all the way back with Nintendo Switch 1. It's sort of a bridge that connects Iwata to Nintendo Switch 2, as the developers state. Iwata famously rejected the idea of magnets in the Nintendo Switch 1 because it just wasn't as sturdy enough. So I guess magnets in Nintendo Switch 2 is a way of rectifying that and bringing Iwata's ideas into 2025. So Iwata still lives on through Nintendo Switch 2 somehow. The Joy-Con 2 apparently had been built from the ground up, completely redesigned, and that includes the control sticks. Although it does not have Hall effect sticks, so Joy-Con drift could potentially still occur. I mean, drift on an analog stick happens with every single controller in the industry. Hall effect just merely mitigates that effect to a great deal. Amiibo is still a thing. Amiibo functionality is still a thing on Joy-Con 2, so that's nice. We have even bigger SL and SR buttons. That is very nice because SL and SR on Nintendo Switch 1 were the size of Tic Tacs. I could probably fit them in my mouth. I fit a lot of things in my mouth. But the main headlining feature of Joy-Con 2 is the inclusion of mouse controls. Basically, flip your Joy-Con to its side to enable mouse support. So I guess that's pretty cool, and it enables a lot more games to be brought to Nintendo Switch 2. A lot more options and a lot more possibilities that can be done with the use of mouse controls. It's such an ingenious idea that, no other console has been able to replicate other than the Wii, kind of, with its motion controls and its gyro capabilities, like the Nintendo Switch 1, but with mouse controls that just further enables the precision of a mouse, just like a PC. As you can see, I am very well versed in PC culture. Although some say that mouse controls on Joy-Con 2 aren't the most comfortable, which is a cause for concern. The Joy-Con 2, yes, it is a very narrow and flat device, unlike a mouse, which usually takes up the entire surface area of your palm. Nintendo Switch 2's Joy-Con 2 unfortunately does not have the surface area to do that, so it might be a little uncomfortable for normal use, which might be a little bit of a problem, but we'll just have to wait and see. I can foresee third-party developers making a sort of grip to make mouse controls more comfortable on Joy-Con 2, but in its default configuration, it seems to get the job done, and might cause a little bit of discomfort, but it gets the job done. HD Rumble 2 is also a new headlining feature of Joy-Con 2 and is bringing up HD Rumble standards to that of the DualSense. Now, HD Rumble was great 8 years ago, so I'm really hoping HD Rumble 2 can really replicate the feelings that the DualSense can put into the palm of your hands. I want to feel like I am stepping on metal, touching grass, feeling the warmth of a woman's flesh, because I desperately need to. Nintendo Switch 2's speakers also seem to be getting an upgrade, as well as the capability of 360 surround sound audio when plugged into headphones, so that's very nice. Hopefully the audio chip and especially the Bluetooth chip in Nintendo Switch 2 is vastly upgraded, because whenever I plug in my AirPods Pros 2 to my Nintendo Switch, the Bluetooth audio connection makes it feel like someone's eating chips in my ears. It sounds very crunchy. The Nintendo Switch 2 dock is 4K capable, which means yes, Nintendo has finally caught up to the competition 11 years later and is bringing 4K capabilities to their games, and 4K 60 or 4K 120 at best. It's a shame that my TV only does 4K at a 60 Hz refresh rate, so I won't be enjoying HDR or 120 Hz. But, 4K, it's gonna look amazing, and it's gonna look up to par with PS5 standards, because Nintendo Switch games on my 4K TV, I can count the pixels. I will bet my ass I can do it. The dock also has a fan, so your Nintendo Switch 2 will not blow up. In terms of power, it is confirmed that Nvidia is once again the supplier of the Nintendo Switch 2 chip. It is a custom chip that is capable of DLSS and 4K gaming with AI upscaled graphics. Now, DLSS is sort of a cheat code for the Nintendo Switch 2, as it's going to be able to fake 120 frames per second and is also going to be able to fake 4K gaming. Well, even if it's faking 4K and 120 frames per second, it's still 120 frames per second at 4K, so who the hell cares how you got there? Just give me 4K and 120 frames per second. Breathe! So with DLSS and its AI upscaling, Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be able to fake those requirements while running on significantly weaker hardware. Though, that's not to say the Nintendo Switch 2 chip isn't weak by today's standards. Well, maybe it is, but if you like PS4 games, well, Nintendo Switch 2 games are going to be up to par with the standards, maybe a little bit above in raw compute power of the PS4. Maybe not as powerful as a PS4 Pro, but it's definitely probably on par with a PS4 and slightly above an Xbox One, so it's bringing 8th generation graphics and capabilities to the modern day. Finally, Nintendo, welcome to 2025. Though the Nintendo Switch 2 has one capability that the PS4 doesn't, and not even the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles have. And that's, once again, AI upscaling and DLSS. That's something even the Steam Deck doesn't have, which is a huge benefit to third-party developers and Nintendo as a whole, which is that one cutting-edge technology that the Nintendo Switch 2 has that the competition does not, which will make it cutting-edge and up to standards with the current day. Now, there is one very big headlining feature of the Nintendo Switch 2, and that is the C button for game chat. Nintendo spent like 5 minutes bragging about how they invented game chat. Like, it's a brand new thing, not like it was made 20 years ago or something. But yes, Nintendo, welcome to the 21st century, Nintendo. You have made game chat integrated into the Nintendo Switch operating system. No longer will we need to use the Nintendo Switch Online app to voice chat. No, we can actually use the system for voice chat. Finally! And along with that, we can actually share our game screens with our fellow friends in a game chat call. Unfortunately, it runs like a potato, but you know, that's probably to be expected. I believe the PS5 also has a screen sharing feature, though it is a max of 1, I believe. I'm probably wrong, but Nintendo Switch is trying to share 4 screens at the same time while also rendering and playing a game. So it's understandable that, you know, the frames of other people's screens will be pretty low. It's, you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's not like you're watching their YouTube live stream. You're just checking out what they're doing on your screen. So game chat, very nice feature for people who don't use Discord, which might be a total of 0. So, you know, if you're that one person out there that's going to be using game chat, you know, this is great. This is great news for you. Unfortunately, I use Discord, and the whole world uses Discord. So whenever Discord gets integrated into the Nintendo Switch 2, that is the day the world is probably going to end, because Nintendo is never going to do that. PlayStation does it, Xbox does it. I hope Nintendo does the same. But Nintendo spent a lot of time bragging about how they invented video calling and calling in general. So, you know, I think they're too proud of game chat that they won't ever let Discord touch their system, which is unfortunate. But game chat in and of itself is a very nice feature, though it is locked behind Nintendo Switch Online. Though, to be frank, yes, it is a paid feature, and yes, that is a button on your controller that will not work unless you pay for it. But Nintendo Switch Online is $20 a year. It is like $3 a month. And if you're going to be using game chat, voice chatting online, you probably are playing online games. So, like, it's not that big of a deal. Plus, you get a bunch of classic games, online play, and what have you. But along with game chat, you can use the Nintendo Switch camera. Yes, that's right. It's not built into the system, unlike the Nintendo 3DS. No, you have to buy it separately, which I guess lowers the cost of the system. But, you know, it's a little weird. You know, $50 1080p camera, which is nice that you can plug into your system. So you can make your game chats like a Zoom call. In my Discord server, we do share our screens a lot, and video call sometimes because we're stupid and we're bored. So yes, there is a market for this camera. It's just not a huge market, but I guess it's nice. It also has built-in game functionality with certain games, like probably Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV Nintendo Switch 2 edition. I memorized that entire title. I probably need to be shot in an alleyway. The Nintendo Switch 2 also features 256 gigabytes of internal memory. Finally, an upgrade from 32, though 256 nowadays, it's not a lot. I mean, a PS5 comes with 1 terabyte, and even that's not a lot. Like, I'm running out of space on my PS5, but 256 gigs is good enough. Though, with micro SD cards for expandable memory, you cannot use a standard micro SD card. You must use a new type of SD card called micro SD Express cards, which are made by SanDisk and Samsung. But yes, you cannot use standard SD cards on your Nintendo Switch, which, you know, is reasonable. Micro SD Express is significantly faster, almost on par with a built-in SSD, so I guess we're updating our standards now, so that's a reasonable ask. Expense-wise, they're not too expensive. They're still the same expense as what micro SD cards back then were like. So, you know, no surprises there. In addition to Nintendo Switch 2 games, Nintendo Switch can also play Nintendo Switch games via backwards compatibility. And it was confirmed in Ask the Developer interview that the Nintendo Switch 2 is actually emulating Nintendo Switch 1 games because the system hardware was built from the ground up. Although visually it may not seem like that, internally I probably believe them. So, well, some games will not have perfect compatibility with Nintendo Switch 2, but Nintendo is working very hard with third-party developers to get them up to par. And no, Nintendo Labo will not work with Nintendo Switch 2. I know. Here, I'll grab a tissue for you. I'll be right back. Probably a very killer feature of Nintendo Switch 2 that has kind of been slept on is Game Share, the return of download play in a way. In Ask the Developer interview, it was said that it is not using the same technologies as Download Play on Nintendo DS, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo 3DS. It is using the same technology found in the Wii U. Oh god! The same technology used to stream your games from the system of the Wii U to the gamepad of the Wii U. That same technology is being used on Nintendo Switch 2 to share games, which is understandable because games nowadays, if you had to use Download Play, games are like gigabytes, hundreds of gigabytes even. Download Play just would not be feasible. It would take a significantly long time to download all of that information. Whereas with the new technology with Game Share, you're simply streaming the game from one Nintendo Switch system. So yes, only one person needs to own a Nintendo Switch or a Nintendo Switch 2 game and is able to play it with not only Nintendo Switch 2 users, but even Nintendo Switch 1 users, which is just a killer feature. We also have virtual game cards introduced with Nintendo Switch 1. It should work again with Nintendo Switch 2, so that is very nice. The Nintendo Switch app is getting a rebrand and sort of a redesign, where you can now access more in-game app services like Zelda Notes, which we'll get to in a moment. But we can also friend people more easily with friend QR codes, so that's pretty nice. We're still using friend codes, but you know, QR codes, that's also very nice. We can also, one very killer feature is we are able to access our album, our screenshots, and our videos from our Nintendo Switch 2 on the Nintendo Switch app. Oh my god, I love this feature. You know how freaking annoying it is to download your Nintendo Switch videos and photos to your phone? It was a nightmare. You had to scan not one, two QR codes, and you can only send one video at a time. With this feature on the Nintendo Switch app, it will make things lightning fast. Thank God. But now we have to talk about some very unfortunate news. The operating system. Now, take a look at these two pictures. They're the same picture. Yes, the Nintendo Switch 2 operating system is practically the exact same as Nintendo Switch 1. It visually looks much cleaner and up to date with 2025 standards. I mean, Nintendo Switch 1's operating system didn't even look out of date, but I guess this has much more smoother, rounder edges, and it just, you know, seems a little more nicer, a little more shinier. But yeah, the home menu, system settings, all of that, it looks the exact same, which is disappointing. I really wanted an upgrade to the home menu, a complete robust redesign where we get all these brand new features. We get like Street Pass, Plaza, we get Street Pass, we get the activity log. It's just like the Nintendo 3DS, but no, it literally is the exact same thing, and yeah, it's very disappointing. But I mean, I do like the Nintendo Switch operating system. Its home menu is super quick and snappy, and you know, the home menu is just the middleman. The most important thing are the games. The home menu is just, you know, a way to get from point A to point B. You're not really spending a lot of time in the home menu. So, you know, it's not that big of a deal. It's just very disappointing. And speaking of disappointing, we have the Nintendo eShop. It is now red instead of orange, which just makes me really sad for some reason. But I guess the good news is that the Nintendo eShop was a big feature that the developers wanted to focus on, because the Nintendo eShop on Nintendo Switch 1 was absolutely miserable. I'd rather drag my balls through a field of glass than navigate the Nintendo eShop. But now on Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo eShop, it runs so much smoother. It looks like discoverability will be much better, and it just runs so much better. That it was a big point of contention for the developers, and it looks like that mission is being paid off. However, there is no music. You want to know why? Because videos will be playing and they don't want to interrupt the music. The same thing happened on Wii U and 3DS. What are you talking about? So because there is no music on Nintendo eShop, I can assume there is no music on the home menu, which again, extremely disappointing. But whatever. It's been 8 years. We'll live with it for the rest of our lives, apparently. In terms of system settings, I did see the Miis. The Miis are still alive, so that's good to hear. The Mii Maker, it probably sounds miserable, mainly because there is no sound. But at least Miis are still here. Isn't that nice? In terms of the apps, we have Nintendo Switch. We have the Nintendo Switch Online app. We have the News app, which has visual redesign. We have Game Chat, Game Share, virtual game cards, and then your standard Nintendo eShop, album, controllers, system settings, and sleep mode. So, it's all very familiar, and your user settings are in the top right corner. So, it's all very samey, which is disappointing. But, it's the Nintendo Switch operating system was known for being very fast and snappy. So, I guess that's very good. In terms of accessories, we have the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller, which visually it doesn't look as good as Nintendo Switch 1. That Nintendo Switch 2 logo. Ugh. We have HD Rumble 2, which should feel very good in the hands. And apparently, reportedly, we have a better control pad. So the control pad on the original Nintendo Switch Pro Controller it's a little controversial to say. I remember on my old Pro Controllers, like ones that I got from 2017, I remember making a lot of misinputs, you could say, on that control pad. But reportedly, it is said that, though not perfect, this new and improved control pad on Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller reduces your ability to make misinputs. It's not perfect. You will make a misinput every once in a while, but it should be better. And also, apparently, the control sticks feel very smooth and silent. The developers really wanted to make the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller the pinnacle of game controllers. If they did, if that were true, it would have analog triggers, which it does not. So, I guess the DualSense still has the edge, but we'll wait and see. This ruined my fucking day. The Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con 2 charging grip is a thing. What the hell? Why isn't this not included with the system itself? It's just hilarious. We're doing this again, Nintendo. It's just really funny to me. But the Joy-Con 2 charging grip does have GLNGR at the back, which is also something the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller has. So yes, they do have back buttons, introducing the G buttons from Nintendo, so that's pretty new and nice. The Joy-Con 2 wheel, presumably for Mario Kart World, is here, and they look much bigger and brighter, and I will not be buying. And yes, we have the Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which we already went over, as well as the Nintendo Switch 2 carrying case, which comes with a screen protector and protective cloth, which is nice, and also a very welcome addition, the Nintendo Switch all-in-one carrying case. I have an unofficial one, but officially licensed for Nintendo Switch 1, an all-in-one carrying case. So it's very nice that Nintendo themselves have taken upon themselves to make an all-in-one carrying case, which does look very nice and very tempting. I see myself using that a lot whenever I'm going on a vacation to an Airbnb or something. So now that we've gone over everything with the Nintendo Switch system and its accessories and operating system, we can talk about the most important thing, the games. Now, as for Nintendo Switch 2 exclusives, we have the huge Mario Kart World game, which looks absolutely phenomenal. It is everything that I've ever wanted from a Mario Kart game. I have always dreamed of a game where we have just seamless integration between courses, where we can drive from one course to the next in a sort of endless mode, but I could have never foreseen an open world type Mario Kart game. It just seems so huge, so fantastic. We have rail grinding and wall jumping. This game is gonna go crazy. The cow is playable. Take my money, Nintendo. Maybe not $80 of it, but take my money. Holy crap. Mario Kart World looks absolutely phenomenal. People that are saying it doesn't clearly don't know what they're talking about. As someone who's played and knows the ins and outs of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, from what I see here, Mario Kart World looks like a breath of fresh air from the old-ass game. The 11-year-old game at this point of Mario Kart 8 is just a breath of fresh air. Just so many new things, a lot of retro courses that look significantly upgraded and very different for some reason. I don't know how I feel about that. As a veteran, I can see the changes, and right now, although it's looking like a $60 game, and we definitely don't know everything about that open world, so we'll see if it's $80 worth of a game. But you know, it's Mario Kart. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was the best-selling game of the generation, so Mario Kart World has a lot to live up to. We also have Donkey Kong Bonanza, a new 3D platformer, by an unknown developer. We don't know if it's the Super Mario Odyssey team, but the hints are very strong. There has been a leak where Kid Pauline is in the game. There's something weird going on, but in that game you can literally destroy everything, and the charm and animation in that game looks super freaking funny. I cannot wait to get my hands on that game. It looks very fun and promising from what I've seen so far, and the ability to just destroy everything, it just seems very fun. I don't know, I just like going monkey apeshit, dumb monkey mode. I would like to see more footage of that game, but what we see right now, it looks very good. Is it Astrobot level? We'll wait and see. Astrobot was the second coming of Christ after all, so we'll see if Donkey Kong can live up to his name. We also have a new From Software game called The Dusk Bloods, spiritual successor to Bloodborne on PS4, which is very funny. It looks like they put PlayStation in a cup chair. So that is some very huge news. I know a friend who's considering getting a Nintendo Switch 2 because of the Dusk Bloods. So yeah, exclusives. Nintendo just keeps coming with them, even if it's from third-party developers. Nintendo Switch just has all the games. It seems that Nintendo is saving a lot of their first-party games for later in the year, because Mario Kart World comes launch day with the system, as Donkey Kong Bonanza only comes a month after. After that, we don't really have any other Nintendo exclusives other than Pokemon Legends ZA, which is a Nintendo Switch game, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which is also a Nintendo Switch game. But maybe that's not that big of a deal, because we have Nintendo Switch 2 edition games, whereas those two same games, Pokemon Legends ZA and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, will be getting Nintendo Switch 2 editions, which will significantly up the resolution and frame rate, while Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is also adding mouse support. So that's all fine and good. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, that looks freaking amazing. I have been waiting for that game ever since the Nintendo Switch 1 released. 8 years. It has been 8 long years, and it looks so good, and we barely know anything about the game. We only know the opening, and that's kind of it, and so far it looks so promising. It looks fantastic. Pokemon's Pokemon. We also have, it's basically DLC for Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World with Kirby and the Forgotten Land Nintendo Switch 2 edition. It'll upgrade the frame rate to a solid 60 FPS, finally, and it'll up the game to 1440p, which is nice, and plus we get DLC for the game, which Kirby and the Forgotten Land is also an amazing game, a very charming, fun platformer that deserves much more recognition. And with the inclusion of this DLC, oh boy, this is going to be great. It is $20 instead of the usual $10 for an upgrade. For an upgrade, it'll just basically add 4K 60 FPS or 120 FPS and maybe mouse controls. But for $20, not only do you get that, but you also get basically what is DLC. And that's the same for Super Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV with added minigames and all that and camera support. So that's very nice. As for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we only get that 4K 60 FPS upgrade, but we do get the addition of Zelda Notes, a game-specific service in the Nintendo Switch app. which kind of adds extra content, really, especially for Tears of the Kingdom, where we get additional story blimps from Zelda, Rauru, and Master Koga, which is really hilarious. And we also get the ability to really easily take auto builds from, the internet and just import them into your game. So that's really funny. I can't wait to ride some cuckoos. But yeah, $70 for Breath of the Wild, so it's a $10 upgrade. If you somehow haven't played Breath of the Wild by now, this is a pretty good buy. Though it's still $60 plus an upgrade. 8 years later, that's a little bit crazy. And if you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom, I highly recommend getting the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, because the low frame rates in that game in the base Nintendo Switch version, ooh, that is some nightmare fuel, man. So yeah, I recommend buying that, though it is $80 because Tears of the Kingdom was originally $70, so that it's a pretty expensive buy, but it's very worth it. Tears of the Kingdom is phenomenal game. I say it's worth every freaking penny, especially with those upgrades. Maybe those upgrades, it's up to you whether you decide if it's worth the $10. It's controversial. PlayStation does the exact same thing, where they charge money to upgrade PS4 games to PS5, while as Xbox offers it for free. The damn Japanese, man! I'll never forgive them. And for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, if you have the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, you will be able to access the upgrade packs for free, which is a very nice perk. And I've been saying this, but Nintendo Switch Online, and plus the expansion pack, it wasn't worth it at launch, but 7 years later, Nintendo Switch Online is very worth it. You get many classic games, and you get online play, you get Nintendo Music, you get a couple special perks and free online games. It's a very nice addition, especially the expansion pack now. Now you get Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64, and though it's very depressing at first, but a growing collection of Nintendo GameCube games, as well as, free DLC for like Animal Crossing New Horizons or Splatoon 2 or Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And as well as now you can get free upgrade packs for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Like, it's a really, really great deal, and there has not been any price hikes as of what I know for now. So it's still the cheapest online service in gaming, and plus you get all of these great games that you can play, all these great classic games that you can play online as a perk, which is really great. It offers so much. Now I'm just hoping that online games like Mario Kart World for Nintendo Switch 2 will have dedicated servers. If it has dedicated servers, the Nintendo Switch Online, it might just be the best it might just be the best online gaming service there is. But that remains to be seen. Hopefully Mario Kart World and other online games will have dedicated servers. Even without dedicated servers, Nintendo Switch Online plus the expansion pack it's not for everyone, but it's a very, very good deal now that offers a lot now. And back then when they first both released, it was just measly. It was like breadcrumbs, but now, pretty worth it. And in terms of third-party support, Nintendo Switch 2 is loaded with that. We got Elden Ring, Cyberpunk, Hitman. We got so many games to play. Whether you're at home or on the go, Nintendo Switch is the right platform. You have so many options, and unlike Nintendo Switch 1, Nintendo Switch 2 will actually be competent enough to run these games, not at like a measly 30 frames per second, not at like 540p, not via the cloud. It's all on device, and it will be so good. And unlike some PC games, it'll actually probably run properly on Nintendo Switch 2, because Nintendo Switch 2 apparently is very easy to develop. And unlike the Steam Deck, some games just aren't optimized properly for Steam Deck, which is very, very odd. And that just goes for PC gaming in general. Some games just aren't well optimized on PC at all. So Nintendo Switch 2 definitely has a bit of a leg over the Steam Deck in some areas, you can say. I've been saying that the Nintendo Switch 2 console itself, the price $450, it's not a big deal. It's very reasonable for what we got. It's a very noticeable upgrade from Nintendo Switch 1, and it's still a step below Steam Deck with 1 terabyte and OLED, and as well as PS5 and Xbox. It's pretty reasonable for $450. The problem is Mario Kart World being $80 freaking dollars. That is an unacceptable standard many aren't willing to take. Then no wonder why GTA 6 is probably going to be $100. This is just a bad standard. Though, so physically you have to get the game at $80, which is bad news for the unemployed right here. Nintendo Switch 2 is going to force people to get a job. Now, unfortunate for me, I'm currently unemployed. But in the bundle, Mario Kart World is $50 digitally. It's a no-brainer to get the bundle. Unless you're like a die-hard physical collector, just get the bundle. If you really want to play Mario Kart World, don't get it separately digitally for $70. Get it for $50 with the Nintendo Switch 2 system. It just makes sense. Why would you buy it separately digitally? Just buy it with the bundle. Though the bundle may be limited in stock, which is a huge bummer. They just Nintendo, why? You just gotta be on point with those prices, man. But yeah, $80 physically really sucks. I will be getting the bundle so I can get that game digitally for $50. I am a physical collector, but digital games, they aren't that big of a deal. It's okay. It's fine. You know what is a big of a deal, though? Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. When I first saw the Direct, I'm like, oh my gosh, the Nintendo Switch 2 is actually going to get some personality in its operating system. It's a built-in game. Oh my god. And then they said, paid downloadable purchase. What? It's a user manual. It's called Welcome Tour. Who was buying this? Absolutely unbelievable. Nintendo, back in the day, Reggie Fils-Aimé had to fight tooth and nail to put Wii Sports as a free pack-in game for the Wii. Yeah, that spirit ain't there anymore, Nintendo. Who is buying Welcome Tour for $10? Who? If you buy Welcome Tour for $10, I'm sorry, you need to be put in a mental institute. We have Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which looks very, very cool. I have high hopes for this game. I did enjoy my time with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. I thought it was a decent, fun time. Warriors games, I kind of like them. They're fun. And as well as the cutscenes, I really love the cutscenes in Age of Calamity. It was all fun and games. I really hope Age of Imprisonment is canon. No more of that alternate timeline bullshit. Please make it canon. It'll be amazing if it's canon. And, if the game doesn't give me, arthritis. What other news? Nintendo Switch 2 game cards still taste bad. Day one, I'm putting that in my mouth still. But yeah, another point of controversy is the Nintendo Switch game key cards, which, it's not a brand new idea. It's something that PlayStation and Xbox have notoriously done a lot this generation, and has also happened too on the past Nintendo Switch. The fear is that this game keycard system might be more prevalent, where the game isn't actually on the game card. You have to download the game once you insert the game card. There is no game on that game card. It's like, what's the point? What's the point? So, hopefully this doesn't become a very prevalent thing for developers. Hopefully developers actually put in the time and effort to put their full game on an actual game card. So hopefully game keycards aren't a very big thing, but developers, when it comes to cheaping out, and they might cheap out a lot with this generation. Game keycards, unfortunately, might be a big deal. Which, the amount of misinformation that came after the Direct was astonishing. People were thinking Mario Kart World was going to cost $90, when in reality they can't tell the difference between $1 and €1, which I'm sorry, Europeans and Canadians. I'm so sorry for that prices. But we're finger-licking, gun-shooting, eagle-hawking, tuaing Americans here. And that game is $80, not $90. The misinformation is absurd. People were thinking all games weren't on the game card. That's not true. It's some specific games, especially Nintendo games, they will probably be on that full game card. Not every single game is a game key card. Can people like read? Can people just read? Welcome tour. That is $10. That is very overpriced. That should be like 25 cents. That should be built into the system. What are we doing here? Drag X Drive, game of the year right there. Wait until the price comes out. I don't know what the price is, but it's probably going to be worth it because Drag X Drive looks to be game of the year material. I promise you, it's probably on par with ARMS, and ARMS was also the greatest game of all time. And also ARMS had an appearance in the Nintendo Direct. There is a Nintendo Switch. There's going to be a free update for ARMS for Nintendo Switch 2. So ARMS is back, baby. ARMS is the greatest game of all time. Don't even get me started. Also, exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2, we have the inclusion of Nintendo GameCube Nintendo Classics. So GameCube games are not for Nintendo Switch 1, they're exclusively for Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo Switch 1 is perfectly capable of running GameCube games. I don't know what's up there. But, you know, it's a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive. You know, I guess that's fine. That's alright. We have a whopping 4 games at launch. That image was hilarious to look at. The game catalog, again, just like every other system, is going to be drip-fed over many years. Will they add Smash Bros. Melee? They haven't added Smash Brothers to Nintendo 64 Nintendo Classics. I doubt they'll do it here. Even though they should, because it is literally free money. Think of all the Melee players that will flock to Nintendo Switch 2 and Nintendo Switch Online just to play Melee. And the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, which Nintendo GameCube is exclusive to. Think of all the money you could be making. People won't have to emulate it anymore. People won't be scared that you will take down your tournaments. It's free money. Just do it. Mario Kart Double Dash, I can't wait to see that. Mario Kart's on every single Nintendo Classics on Nintendo Switch Online. So, you know, I can't wait to see Double Dash there. WarioWare is probably going to be there one day. That's going to be very hype. This GameCube just opens up the door to so many great games. Like F-Zero GX, that game's going to go crazy online. Have you ever tried Dolphin Online? Dolphin Online is freaking terrible. It makes me slightly proud to pay for Nintendo Switch Online. Because Dolphin Online can be pretty miserable, and that's just Mario Party. And yeah, again, Mario Party. There's gonna be so many Mario Party games on the Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, that's pretty much it on Nintendo Switch 2. Now, let's see what the internet has to say about Nintendo Switch 2. Awesome! I will be pre-ordering a Switch 2 as soon as all the tariff nonsense settles and clears. I have taken on generational debt and pre-ordered Nintendo Switch 2. When I read that sentence, I knew you weren't continuing your generation. Welcome to the club, buddy. You know, I'm dying alone. Hate Nintendo as much as you like, but you can't deny their games are some kind of magic. They're pretty trash, actually. Hey, Tripster, how about you take a look at a real man's game like everybody's 1-2 Switch? Yeah, we'll see you talking then. So that was everything we know about the Nintendo Switch 2 so far. Overall, I'm pretty excited for the system and cannot wait for June 5th to come any closer. There's just a lot to look forward to. The prices of just Mario Kart World are a very big bummer for me, but I have my ways of mitigating it. I will just buy Mario Kart World via the bundle. I have the money and I like spending my money on a bunch of dumb shit. But you know what else I'm going to be spending my money on? Drag X Drive, baby. That game is game of the year, I'm telling you.